to providing energy for free at a time when energy costs are increasing. Furthermore, the council will be unable to access future government funding for EV infrastructure unless a tariff is in place by spring of this year. So that's the purpose of the paper, and the recommendations are set out in section 2. Stuart Cullen and Ian Gold are able to support with any questions.
The first one is, we say we're going to offer a 10% discount to residents. I'm just wondering how that will be administered, how that somebody will be identified as a resident when they're charging their vehicle. And the other one is, we've said that we will, I suppose, adapt prices should costs of electricity go down and up. I'm just wondering how that will work. Will it be an automatic? Kind of look at it on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and update the kind of charging. And would there need to be, if there's changes to that, a decision brought back, people brought back to council? Is it something that's going to just be done automatically?
I cover the last question first. Okay. So one of the recommendations of the paper is to delegate the decision making on prices to itself. We'll do that when we do a consultation with members. The mechanism for doing that, we have predicted through our box at the bottom of that in terms of how frequently that's going to be. It would be a mechanism of regular review of prices, not just of the electricity prices, but also the costs that we are getting in terms of maintenance costs as well. We're trying to cover those costs also. That's how we'll be covering them.
The card system will be that there's a card that the industry reservation and that will identify the machine.
Start individuals who can apply via form and fill out the details, and the details will be checked to make sure that they are an appropriate person to receive the discount.
Just picking up on one of the points that Pete had made there. They said the council would be able to access future government funding for an electric vehicle infrastructure unless a tariff is in place. That doesn't mean it has to be this tariff, does it?
No, that was for system, a mechanism of charging. Although the guidance says that what the industry is trying to do across Scotland is to create a level playing field and to set a rate of charges which stimulate private investment. So that's one of the things to take into consideration in proposing the charge.
The problem isn't that the tariff has been proposed. It's not recognised as a level playing field because there isn't a level playing field, is there? For Scotland, more in terms of charge.
But there are variables across Scotland. What we're trying to do is to establish at least some consistency across the valley, so we've been working closely with colleagues in Stirling and Falkirk Council. So that's why we're in alignment with the Falkirk pricing structure. Stirling they're going a different way. We don't feel that's the appropriate way to reasons to set this in the paper.
Yeah, I could just say that one, Falkirk, we mentioned Falkirk and Stirling's going differently, but Fife, you could start terming Fife are going a different way as well, aren't they? Different from us are going a different way. It's Falkirk, it's the wire at the moment, isn't it?
Colleague who's represented the paper has done some research in other councils, and so they already have schemes established, and they are operating at tariff levels slightly higher than ours as far as what is being proposed. And my understanding is from the initial contact my colleague has had that they're still having to, the councils are still having to subsidise the operation of the system. So there are costs associated obviously with operating and maintenance and warranty costs and the rest of it. And their view is that it should be a self-sustaining system. We still believe that the rates that we're proposing probably won't cover it, and it's still have somebody who would subsidy. And there's economies of scale if we partner with Falkirk Council, that we feel we wouldn't get any people is what I'm saying.
So I'm asking questions, but questions and answers, or generating more questions are often about it, I'm trying to put this sort of. Just address the point about private investment. Then the part of this, they just for to make it to simplify, because my opinion is going to be wrong. But basically what they're saying is, unless somebody can make money out of it, unless no way you can make money out of this is increasing the tariff. And if you increase the tariff and somebody can make money out of it, that will encourage private investment. Is that what we're saying? Because private investors are not going to invest money in electric vehicle chargers if they're not going to get a couple of quid sales of it. So the lower the tariff, then that means there's less margin there available for a private investor. Is that basically the argument that we have to get charges up so somebody else can make money?
No, the position we've taken as the council obviously has budget pressures. We don't subsidise people going to Tesco or BP for fuel. So neither do we want to subsidise people using electric cars. So at the moment we've got a system whereby people can charge for free. What we're looking to do is have it so it's cost recovery model, but obviously there needs to be an element of the tariff that makes it commercially attractive for the investment. And that's the guidance we're getting, is that it needs to be, attractive for investors to actually put in the infrastructure, as it were.
That's the point of my question. So,
Yeah.
So just to be clear, when you use words like commercially attractive, what we mean is the tariffs have to be of significant level that it can generate some element of flexibility that money can be paid out if someone is invested. Because if you just charge, you just don't have to wash your face. And somebody's not going to put money in for you because they're not going to make any money to you. You're going to want to pay because you're only covering what it costs to put that in. That's at the point. So essentially, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I would say it's a bad thing. Some people might say it's a good thing. But what we're saying is that we're having to put the tariff up in order to create the headroom to provide the private investor with some profit.
So there's a few things that we're perhaps conflating. So first and foremost, the charges that we put forward is about full cost recovery, as much as we can to get full cost recovery. The actual tariffs that we come up with was very similar to Falkirk anyway, and because we're working together to try and create a common approach across the Forth Valley, we've adopted the exact same tariffs. So it's mainly around full cost recovery. The point that I made around the level of charges across the nation. There are a number of models you can go to. You just keep things run wholly by councils, or you can have everything run by the private sector. The guidance or where Transport Scotland are trying to take us to is that it's in the middle, it's public-private, it's like a partnership. So that's the kind of the context, if you like, around the charges in this paper predominantly around the full cost of recovery.
The last one is so, just to clarify the point, I was talking about outliers in terms of the tariff rates, which is obviously a fundamental issue here. And I would like to challenge that. I think we can ask for some clarity on that, because we did get a letter from Unison. Now, I copied and pasted it all last night, and I'm just not working this and looking at what document copied in what tariffs were considerably lower for Perth and Ross, for Fife, Stirling, all of which are being made on local authorities. The only one that's out by is Falkirk, because it's much more expensive, which means we are joining the one that's cut out the same for everybody else. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I think it's important members know that there are a range of rates across the neighbourhood council areas, and it's Falkirk are much higher than the other ones, and that's the information that I've got. And I'm not just saying you don't think that's the case, but that's what I've been provided with Unison. You should have announced that email. That's my question. Is it right? Is it wrong? I don't want to take up time in the council to get through this, but it's there. I guess I'm much still in council 25p per kilowatt hour slow, 25p kilowatt hour fast, 35p for average charge up, and I think per minute over the 40 minutes. County council 15p per kilowatt hour, and that's right through for slow, fast and rapid. And Perth was 30 pence, 35 pence. So in response to the question, there is a variation across Scotland. And those examples you quoted are less expensive than what the proposed tariff here. There are other councils that have got increased that are higher rates,
There are also, it's a fast moving thing, so councils are already reviewing the rates they've got, and we understand.
Sorry, the folks say it's happened, going right on the council, is going to be relying on the transfer of legal in the authorities.
Yeah.
Well, these are the name of the authority.
Well, these are we're going to stop. So there's a conversation being had at the regional level with Falkirk and Stirling. Falkirk have taken a stance about setting a level of tariff. I don't know if it was an cost recovery for them or whatever. They've set a tariff that is more consistent with what the guidance from Transport Scotland did. Stirling are taking a view that they want to be more of a council subsidy model. So the rate that Stirling has set, we understand requires, and in the future will require an even greater level of council subsidy. And we got the view that, you know, we're not able to support that.
The point was, I'm using the terminology in the report that says the local authorities, the align themselves with that. If we align ourselves with the local authorities, we want the local authority to be able to align themselves, which is Falkirk, which is the outlier in comparison to all the rest. It's quite simple. I do understand the point you made that it is across the whole of Scotland. The terminology used would seek to indicate to us, as elected members, that what we're ending up with something very similar to everybody else has got. It's not. So, no wonderful authorities, we've got these levels, that's Falkirk, the rest is happening.
So just, what I say, Councillor Hogan, I think we've all elected members were given a copy into that email from Pearson. It's got figures and information in it. It's entirely up to us as originally elected, we're going to decide to investigate the accuracy of that or not. And then decide to use that decision making in this process. What we're getting is we're getting into is a debate between us and officers in terms of the merit. That's not well, this is also not well, it's not coming out as questions, it's coming out as a debate.
Well, last time Falkirk rolled out plan. I said, no, there's not only that, I said, there's not already any problems at all.
Followed up by the reference to what's the name of authority. So those are factors that we will take into consideration when come to make a decision on this. But in this stage, if they're asking questions of the paper we've got in front of us, that's not the use of the paper, it's the one to be presented to council by the officers.
I'm aware of that. Yeah.
Do you have any others?
No, just get that. Why is the next year I don't like them?
Yes, Tom.
Thank you. The question is about the market attractiveness of the tariffs. I mean, any sensible business is going to full cost recovery plus as the pricing system. If we want to start the private sector in, it needs to be attractive, as Mr. Holden was saying, it needs to be a margin for them to. At the end of the day, you end up with the pricing you're going to the market with, and that needs to be attractive. Have we done any cost per mile analysis on these tariffs to find out how that would compare with currently these internal combustion costs per mile? In order to encourage people to move from internal combustion engines, you need to have something more attractive. And cost per mile would be a huge part of that. We already know the cars are more expensive. So have we done any analysis on cost per mile to reduce it?
We've not done that as part of this exercise, this paper, in the work that we're doing together with Falkirk and with Stirling. On a forthcoming basis, we are looking at a strategy around how do we support and stimulate that transfer into electric vehicles, and how do we also get the private sector involved. So all of those questions are being teased out through work there, which in due course will come into council governance. This paper is specifically around about getting full cost recovery of the charges that we're paying for, as set out in the council budget paper. We signal that this paper will be coming. So the remit of this paper is so focused on that.
Yes, I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. Well, I've got some slight concerns about the limits. I guess for most people, 4 hour limit is perfectly fine, but I think people with older EV, I think people understand these things, they might not be able to charge their car within that kind of time frame. Is there any limits you've made for that? Such as, you know, would they be, would they be allowed to charge a vehicle for longer? Can you, and how, how does limit enforced? You can just come and unplug it and then plug it right back in, and then your 4 hours starts again.
I think the system is such that you can simply just plug it, unplug it and plug it sort of thing, but real estate charges still are not proposing to have any flexibility in that, because it's very difficult to police the admin behind it. It's from the council's perspective is quite resource intensive, so I think so. Proposing it down the line of this, the social side of it and the messaging about the system and how it operates is really important. So the chargers will have the sort of terms and conditions, as it were, of the use on each of the chargers, and also the information they want to if the tariff comes into place, which should tell people quite clearly how the terms and conditions about using the chargers. But I understand that. It's not proposed that there would be any sort of, there's a 10-minute grace period beyond which you then move into the 4-hour period where you're charged £12 for a fast charger for every 4-hour block that you. It's to get turnover and spaces are used by more drivers.
Yeah, just thinking about the people that have, don't have any means to kind of charge the vehicle at home. They're relying on charging public networks now. Obviously, they get a discount and this with 10%, which is nice. But then, if they can't charge a car for 4 hours, then it kind of really limits the usage of the car and what they can use it for. That's all I'm thinking. I don't see it more happening if they have to fill in a form anyway. And just, ask people to get the car, they fill in a form, for example, and there's certain ones that take longer to charge or that older that, and you could give them more time or anything like that, that will be an option.
I suppose it would do with the principle, Councillor, the actual charging side of it and the money transaction is dealt with by Chargepoint Scotland. So the fact that somebody's gone over via information transferred to Chargepoint Scotland and that would then be related in the charges that were given to the person that had beat themselves onto the charger. So it's something we could explore changing that. But I think the proposal on the paper is that the things are as they are. It's a £12 for every 4 hours. For the rapid charges, it's some other fee. But I understand the point that you made that we can pull your vehicles.
Just got one more question, that's right. Understanding that was that during the budget, we kind of factored in that we're going to start charging for this. What is the impact if we don't vote for this paper today financially?
So the electricity costs, the cost I shouldn't say the electricity cost, so you've got £180,000 a year cost to the council. That's going out the door right now. And then on top of that, there's annual revenue cost of 25 grand a year to cover the maintenance for these older units that we've got as well, Clackmannanshire. So there's that factor into it as well. That's quite substantial.
118 or 180?
180.
So if we don't do that, then we have to spend the money somewhere else. That's their answer.
Sorry, I just wanted to come back to your question, Councillor Quinn. Just in terms of the budget, my recollection is that those potential savings that were just outlined by Ian, they were reflected in as savings presumptions in the budget, and also in terms of fees and charges, there wasn't a presumption of the income until the policy had come forward. That's my recollection of what went through the budget this time. What was noted in the budget was in the fees and charges paper. You remember was an appendix, and it indicated that, excuse me, sorry, it indicated that we bring forward the policy.
Sorry, because
Yeah, it's just a very quick and very simple question. Talking with a complete non-driver. How can you tell you the price of a gallon of petrol? None of them can cover whatever. So how much would it cost a driver of an electric vehicle to charge from flat to fully charged? Simple question.
It very much depends on the vehicle, council. You could get obviously very small and kind of cheaper vehicles to recharge up to. Very expensive, but it's, to me, it would be in the region of between 30 and 40, 50 pounds. So all of this from charging.
Okay, any other questions?
Can I ask one question? I just asked figures, I think she was exactly I'm going to do this. Is any of this fall within 6 months or what's the budget?
No, I don't think so, because what was committed to in the budget was to bring forward this policy to set the charges, so that you didn't take a decision on actual charges as part of the budget. What there was I think it was about 17 in the charging, fees and charges policy, that said that we were looking at charging the EV, it just put the marker down, and then that would be brought forward to council following budget.
Okay, and I've got finishing questions, and ask council what to move the time levels.
Thank you. I welcome this paper on introducing tariffs to our electric vehicle charging points. I took part in climate change forums for Clackmannanshire, and we talked about charging points. The residents always asked about when we would be introducing tariffs, and electric vehicle owners themselves asked when the tariffs are introduced, the overstayed charges would be very welcome. I don't own an electric vehicle myself, so I wasn't aware of the issue with overstaying until I spoke to the owners. We as an administration group had a long discussion regarding the charges, as we are aware that Stirling do have considerably lower tariffs than the ones proposed in the paper, although what is proposed in the Stalker. So Stirling are subsidising their tariffs, and is that something we should do? The charging points had been completely subsidised previously, and this was to help to get the network of charging points established and to encourage electric car ownership and help show that there was a need for these points. I don't believe that we can go forward subsidising the charging points, as this would mean diverting funds from other projects. Full cost recovery is essential and the fairest way to manage the charging points. I know some people say that the charging could deter those from switching from petrol to an electric car, but owning an electric car for a large number of Clackmannanshire residents is just not possible. The cost is too high, even taking into account if charging points were heavily subsidised. Also, when we look at sustainable transport, options like electric vehicles that's lower down the pyramid than walking, cycling and public transport. Would it be fair to go on subsidising? And I don't think it would be. So I welcome this paper.
Okay, thank you, councillor Matthias. Second.
That's convener. Sorry, I'm just getting this. As reported in this paper, this decision is in line with Scottish Government directives and acknowledges that subsidies in the future for EV charging may no longer be available to this council. Therefore, full cost recovery of the EV charging structure is essential and the transition period is welcome. And while we as a council would encourage the use of electric vehicles to reduce our carbon emissions, the time has come to introduce a charging structure. But the cost of EV charging will remain far less than petrol. I'll hold my hands up and say that I still own a petrol vehicle, and I have no immediate plans to change that. But I'm playing devil's advocate today. I wouldn't expect to go to Tesco and ask them to subsidise my petrol costs. Council funds cannot subsidise electric vehicle costs forevermore. Just saying, it's just a fact of life. And if people make the choice to have electric vehicles, they also have to make the choice as to how they're going to charge them it can be a bonus for people who have electric vehicles. And while we would encourage that, because of the climate challenge initiatives that we want to see happen in this county, it's not for us to subsidise that, and it is a personal choice. So I would welcome this paper going through, and I'm happy to second this paper. Thank you.
Thank you. Papers open for debate. Councillor Clegg.
Thank you, Convener. There's a section here. First of all, we shouldn't be subsidising fuel costs. That's not our job to do. Providing services for the public, getting to and from work, getting around this is your own problem. Don't subsidise this, as you said correctly, your diesel and your petrol costs. So it's a fundamental principle. I don't think we should be subsidising. We can provide a service on a cost zero, on a zero cost basis. That's one thing. We could do that as a public service, because there isn't private funded infrastructure in place at the present moment. So we want to get that, the burden of increasing the number of points that will have to go down in the future. If more and more people are attracted into the marketplace, they want charging in more and more places. Somebody will pay for it. And on the present model, if we're charging it at their cost, we would have to pay for that. We'd have to find money to put it in. So we've got to open up the market to private enterprise to come in and install those stations and start selling, just like it feels like Shell and BP do with fuel stations. It's the same kind of principle, basically. So we need to open it up. So we can't go on not charging. We have to charge something. And setting at the rate that costs us nothing is a starting point for me. And that's what this paper's proposing, that we start charging at what it costs us. And that to me is the first stage in this thing. It's a no-brainer for me, basically.
Yes, Clegg, could you? Councillor Holden.
Thanks, Mayor. Looking through this, the principle being made that, we have to pay and it can be subsidised. Yes, it can, and no, we shouldn't pay. What would be my take on it? I think we will be let down with the central government. And I encourage the everybody to place the point and say, okay, do this because it's good for the environment, it's good for the world, it's good for the future. What I'm not telling is in 6 months' time, once these companies that are supposedly lauding with unplanned and they already what they're working to do, they're making billions out of it. And what it doesn't tell you in the silence, well, this can't be, the tariffs that have been put forward can't be costing, can't be. Because there has to be an element, what they're saying is we're setting them at such a level that will get our costs back, but there has to also be an element in there that makes established for private sector investment, which means that proportion of it, whatever proportion it has to be, but there must be the element of it, which must be there as a sort of wee bit that's floating around that somebody else can get a bit of later on, so this gets a wee bit in the pie. I don't agree with that. I think it should be subsidised. I don't think it should be fully subsidised, but I think it should be subsidised to a certain degree. And I think that fund should be from central government. I think they've got a damn cheap. I've cut local government and grants left, right and centre and said, there you go, you get these grants, you can put all this infrastructure in. And by the way, it gets to the point, about charging them or something, but you all the costs out of that, are going to charge them to the public. If they're supposed to be recovered, we've already paid government, we've already paid through our taxes. But taxes can be reinvested in a different way. The returns can be invested in a different way to sometimes to encourage people to use vehicles which are friendly to the environment. In which case, Clackmannanshire will line up with alternatives now. And I want to be dealing with a couple of things here. I was trying to get that point across, and I don't think I've entirely succeeded. So I want to get the point over, and at least in terms of the opportunity to have during the debate. The paper itself says, and I want to quote the paper. As part of joint working, council looking to align their EV tariffs with their neighbouring authorities. Looking to align their tariffs, and to me what that means is you're charging 50p, you're charging 60p, you're charging 50p, now I'm going to do the 55p mark or somewhere with just based on everybody else. This is weird. Weird. If you look at Labour local authorities and ones, just I've got the figures now and I know that I've been past it. Stirling 25p, Clackmannanshire 48p to slow. And I think the price for the fast was 68, is it? Then the fast charge is also 25p for Stirling, rather charged 35p. Perth and Ross 30p, 30p, 35p respectively. Fife Council 15p, 15p, 15p. Clackmannanshire, 48p, 89p. It's just, I don't know, I haven't got the figures for Falkirk. Presumably we're going to do that ballpark. So what we have not done, we have not aligned ourselves in terms of our tariffs, where they the local authorities, what we've done is we've picked one, we've aligned ourselves with one, which is the outlier, because it's the one that's much, much more expensive than our neighbourhood authorities. These are our neighbourhood authorities. Glasgow's not, Edinburgh isn't. We've got for examples, that's all. To me, we'll pick that one, and I do understand the symptoms, my symptoms like also, I absolutely understand why they're doing that. We're paying for somebody else to use their electricity. But the problem is where that subsidy should come from. It's not the fact that it shouldn't be subsidised, I think it should be. It should be subsidised from central government, but I don't think you get less to Westminster or where it's all, that somebody should be saying what often shouldn't be us. So I find myself in this position where I can't support the paper, and I didn't really have an alternative for me. So I'm just going to have to go against it. But I do think that we should make our thoughts clear on this, and our concerns clear on this, the members of the public here, that I'll be contacted by another member of the public. And this question has been asked 2 times, I've had an answer. And in real terms, what's it going to cost? What impact is this going to have? So, it would be almost £1,000 cheaper for this person to run a petrol car per year if it was using charges and what it would be for to go better. Where's the incentive in that? If these figures are accurate, where is the incentive in that? This is supposed to incentivise people to go greener and save the environment. It's achieving the absolute opposite. What will happen is people will not move to that. They'll do that. They're going to do a 12-year-old or 13-year-old diesel. Or they'll buy a new diesel, which is even more red for the cost of that as on the environment. So the post tariffs also almost double the current tariffs that anybody else here would pay at home. That depends at the moment. In the basic use of domestic cost of domestic energy. See the grant, and I've just struggled to find that there's mentioned here about a grant which allows you to develop the pricing strategy and stuff that they're being able to access. You would be cheaper, no building any more EV charges at all. Put the money in a fund and allow people to access that fund to put charges in their own home, because they'll get it half the price of their own home as what they'll get it buying for you. So that would be incentivised, wouldn't it? But we seem to be head from rushing to this thing, but trying to put all these EV charges in place because we want to encourage private investment. What if the private investment is needed? What if people could have them in the homes to better run money? Surely that's where our money should be going. I wouldn't build them at all, I would just stop building them. Because they're going to be too expensive for people to use, they're not cost effective, we're not going to encourage people to do the very thing we're going to encourage them to do. So see the money we're going to access to the money worth £180,000 a year, create a grants to them. Ask people to invite to bid for it. I could put all this in the amendment, couldn't you? Look at the very patient and I couldn't put this forward in the amendment. But, I don't get much further the grant fund than we've got to allow us to use it for that, because we want to encourage private investment, we want somebody else to make a profit. We're already making a profit as far as I'm concerned. And so I can't stop.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Convener. I actually agree with a lot of what Councillor Holden has said there. I do think there should be a subsidy for incentivisation, and I do think it should come from central government. We're not in a position where we're doing that, so we've got to make a decision today based on our circumstances. And the officer said there, it's 180k a year in electricity and 25k a year for the maintenance. That's £205,000, and that's nearly equivalent to 1% council tax increase on every resident in Clackmannanshire to subsidise a few people who use electric chargers. And I do know that I've got, kind of friends elsewhere who would come to Clackmannanshire right now because it's free. So they come in here, they're not local residents, they charge up their cars and they go off. So it's a choice, and it's a political choice as to whether we decide we want to subsidise electrical car use, or that we want to spend the money on something else as the budget strategy update showed that we're going to face significant challenges moving forward. And for me, it's an easy choice to make. The average cost of an electric car, I just googled it a while ago, is £50,000. They already get no road tax, so they're already subsidised there, where other people are paying road tax. It's unlikely that our most vulnerable and poorer communities are able to buy a £50,000 car. They're more likely to have the petrol cars or the diesel cars, or actually have to use public transport. So for me, I'd rather invest £205,000 supporting our supported bus network, or a travel system that works for more people, more disadvantaged people than people who, quite frankly, can probably afford to charge their vehicles at the going rate. It's not an ideal situation. I do agree that people have been led into believing that it's going to be cheaper for an electric car, and it's not necessarily. It's probably working out about the same with the charges that are proposed there. The same for electric as in, you know, a petrol car. I mean, I know when I fill up my Ford Fiesta, it's nearly 60 quid these days. It's still cheaper for people if they're doing that in electric. So I support the recommendations and the tariffs that are there, and I don't think it'll be very long before the other neighbouring authorities kind of move to those tariffs either, because we're all facing the same financial you know, kind of outlook, and choices have to be made, and I know the choices that I would make. Thanks.
Okay, here's a good.
Yeah, you know, what we said, it's not an easy decision here, but like we have kind of been pushing it to a corner. I mean, I think EVs are far too expensive. I think the bottom mentioned that is, yeah, I was looking at EVs a couple of months ago, and I couldn't find any ones under £30,000. I couldn't find any second-hand ones less than about £10,000, and that was really bad second-hand ones at the range of about 80 miles, you know. So it's overwhelmingly people that can afford it that are buying EVs. It's not all the case. Some people are sacrificing because they really feel strong about it and they want to do that, and you know, that's definitely a good thing. But you know, we're subsidising people's transport that can afford to pay for it. And I wish the EVs were cheaper and they were more affordable, and it didn't cost 30, 40, 50,000 pounds to buy an EV. But unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do about that. Obviously, government can do more about that. The UK government level, I wish the Scottish government could do some more about that, and we could make things more affordable for people. But that's kind of where we are. And you can say something's cheaper, but they're not cheaper because we could give it free for longer. You know, so if you average out how much more free you've got from us, they could put the stuff and you know, you're while before people break even on it. So I think on balance, you know, recovering the cost is reasonable. And, you know, given that we're not looking to make money, we're just looking to kind of cover our costs, and we're looking to keep on top of it and adjust it as we need. On that basis, you know, I'm not enthusiastic about it, but I think it's a sensible thing to do, you know, financially for us. I don't think it's going to harm a lot of people that can't afford to pay a little bit extra. And then from what I heard at the climate change forums and the rest of it, people get that, yeah, you should pay for these things. People accept that, you know, I get it free just now. I understand that that's not really sustainable, or that's not really fair, and people get that, you know, other councils introducing charges, and then that's kind of the way that it has to be. So I'm not terribly enthusiastic about it, but I'm going to support the paper on the basis, you know, it makes good financial sense for us, and I think it's on balance, it is fair to most people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Quinn.
Yes, I just wanted to come back a couple of things, points that Councillor Holden was making about subsidising. But it's a problem when you use personal pronouns like we. When I said we should be subsidising, I meant this council. I did not mean the country. I 100% agree with you. It's a Scottish government or a UK government policy, and that's what the funding should come from. Not as we can't possibly wish upon us the cost of money and make us closer to optional services and things like that. Our position has to be zero cost, I think, in this. And having said that, let's move on. I think on the pricing, we shouldn't get too worked up about this, because the whole pricing is in its infancy at the moment. It's a very, very industry. Things that I haven't said there, you will get people who will be keen to go one direction with pricing because they want to make money, others want to go in another direction because they want volume. All of that in time will settle out as a whole housing business. And so the least we can do is to stay afloat of the game by covering our costs and just letting things settle out. The chief authority will soon find that they're being swamped by people coming into their areas, as we were finding people were coming into Clackmannanshire because we were surface free. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind, that we can make ourselves a hostage for fortune, we can probably charge enough for it. And that costing us more.
So really, I'm very strong, I'm confused about it because it's a bottom line position for me. Cover your costs, stay in the market, keep yourself flexible. You don't have to, at this stage, you don't have to invest a lot of money in new infrastructure. Let's see what happens. We can come to a bit of another council paper a year from now and we'll spend money on infrastructure. Or I'll have to get a private, thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor Bain.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. One thing I would say is, when you talk about these electric cars, you talk about them at 67 days, £1,000. They're not all people who can afford them. There are people who use their allowance from ambulance allowances to actually get their car. So they're paying for that every month. So they're not looking at, oh, I need to get, I can afford to get an £80,000 car. What they're looking at is, well, I need a car big enough to take whoever it is in the car that needs a big car, and they don't have the money, so they have to use their allowance. And there's quite a few people like that, and I think the only way they'll get that now is through electric cars. There's not an awful lot of option for them. Apart from that, I think there's too many variables just now to actually be able to say yeah or nay to this. I do believe we should charge, because it's not fair for people to have an electric car and not pay anything. They've had that for a wee while now, and now we're having to think about actually having to get them to pay for it. The other thing I'm a bit worried about is nobody's saying anything in this paper about the electricity costs. Electricity costs are high just now. We're hoping maybe in a couple of years' time they'll come down a bit. So what happens then? Do we drop the fees, or if they go up more, do we put the fees up? These are all variables that we've not really spoken about. So, in all honesty, I can't say yeah or nay to this paper at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who's anybody else? So, councillor Lodge, you want to opportunity, so?
Yeah, I was just going to say in respect to like the charging, like what was happening with the people to Pete as the director, and he would be able to come back to us. So I think it is to discuss it, like, you know, some miracle of the electricity costs actually went down, so then they can adjust it so we are covering the electricity costs and our maintenance costs. So that is built into this, that we would be able to kind of change it on that stage. I've got nothing further to say, because I think it's all the points that can be moving. Let's go on.
Thank you. So the paper for the recommendation will be now 211 to 215, obviously, but that's just depending on the votes.
That's the level.
Sure.
So, Councillor Fairland,
For
Councillor Lindsay,
For.
Councillor Sully, Councillor Bain, Councillor Law, for Councillor Hamilton, for Councillor McTaggart, for Councillor Earl,
For.
Councillor Wilson, for Councillor Holden,
Yes.
Councillor Quinn,
For.
Councillor Harrison,
For.
Councillor Cohen.
For.
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4. 2 no, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's isn't here.
so just 10 to you can. Yeah, so it's unanimous 11 to 10 3. There's 2 against.
2 against. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You've got 2, 10 and 6. 2, 10 and 6, 18.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 13.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
14.
It's a 14, sorry. It's 13. It's not.
It's 13.
It's a lot. It's 11.
Yeah.
It has been so lucky.
Okay, item 13 is the investment in fossil fuels is 190 for the budget. Okay.
Convener. On the 11th of August 2022, Clackmannanshire Council unanimously passed a target to reach net zero of greenhouse gas emissions by 2040 for the council's own operations, and a target in the Clackmannanshire area to reach net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2045. The council's interim climate change strategy identified divestment from fossil fuels as an opportunity to deliver on these net zero targets. Also, considering that the council's continued investment in fossil fuels that have been raised in the community-based climate challenge forums. On 25th of October 2022, the Council's Climate Improvements Board endorsed that options to drive forward council divestment from fossil fuels be taken to council for consideration. The recommendations are set out in section 2. They're obviously online. Should there be any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Speak. Are there any questions? There's no more to it.
Nice. I'd just like to, just like the previous paper, the divestment of the local government pension scheme Falkirk from fossil fuels, we brought up at the climate change forums, and I've also had emails regarding this. So I'm happy to propose this paper, and thank you to the team, especially Robbie, for the work that has been put in. We're not simply asking for a letter to be written to the scheme, but asking for a meeting to sit down and discuss and review the current policy. We're also going to review the council's own approach to investment through our treasury and management policies. We've set our target to come net zero, so it can be very hypocritical to us while we're working towards this, that the scheme is investing in fossil fuels. As the paper states, the belief that continued investment in fossil fuel companies somehow gives you great space to discuss sustainable practices is just a falsehood. We're not denying that fossil fuel companies have benefited pension schemes previously, but we are entering a new stage where investing in fossil fuels could become worthless as investors exit the sector. Yet you have pension schemes like the Australia's public service super fund investing in the renewable energy sector, and moving away from investing in fossil fuel companies will not only be morally right, but financially. I welcome this paper and look forward to an update on the discussions with the team.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Go to second.
Thank you. No, I'm very pleased to been involved in this to some extent, went to be able to work with council and law and also with the officers to try and come up with this. And yeah, it goes far beyond what most kind of divestment should you see to councils. You get a letter written to the pension fund and you get a standard response sent back and it's forgotten about. And so I think what we've tried to do is really, we don't want to send a letter and get a letter back and that's the end of it. We want to have a discussion and we want to talk to them. And we're asking them we're trying to make reasonable requests, like a moratorium on new investments. We want to discuss with them their approach to quantifying the risk of climate change, and going beyond just speaking about the pension funds. Because obviously, it's not just our pension fund; it's the Falkirk Council pension fund, it's focused on the Class Council, thousands of other organisations that are involved in this. So we've got limited in that. But looking at what we can control is also review of our own treasury management policy as well to make sure that where we're keeping our money is where we do the kind of things we want to do, not get involved in things that are contrary to where we want to go. So I think that this is kind of a very comprehensive I hope is that I'll open up a discussion with the pension funds. And then that we get as well ourselves, and when it comes time to looking at our own treasury management policy, and then we can make changes to that to align more in line with what we. Thank you. I'm pleased to say this.
Okay, thanks, Mark. The paper's now open for debate. Councillor Holt.
Yeah, I'm just glad to see the change of heart for the last minute and a half. And we've been willing to financial sacrifice, not the benefit of the environment, but famous to the one. I don't know that a lot of this like so it's happy to go along with.
Okay, Councillor Clegg.
Thanks. Old common trailer, I'm afraid I'm not really that happy with it. I don't like blanket bans because you're tying your feet to find it instead of being certain from which you can't move. Normally it's the case, difficulties in the marketplace, you know, two things, they can either put their head in the sand and plug on and die, or they can reinvent themselves to go into areas where they can continue to succeed. We've seen that happen in the film market, the camera market, we've seen it happen in the cigarette market. The companies, my son in vapes, they picked up that things that said imperial tobacco on it. I thought, well, that's a sensible response to ban cigarette smoking, it's to go down that road by artificial life. And I think that we are too early in the game to be judging the fossil fuel companies. We've got a massive investment, they still have to sweat. And it's no surprise to me that they're really slow to immediately embrace the whole idea of zero carbon on this. And that will come about because of that carbon. Because they will be forced by market conditions to do that. So in the meantime, if they're wise enough to switch into the new technologies and put the money into it, we could make money by investing in those successful companies. So I think it's a mistake to hold tie ourselves to the it's that really my view. I know the emotion and the sentiment behind this paper. I understand that and I applaud it, but I think it's a mistake in terms of where you leave yourself places to go afterwards.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other contributions to the debate? Councillor Taylor.
Thanks, Convener. It's suggested in the paper that over time, the money that's invested in the fossil fuel initiative at the minute is going to diminish as we move further into carbon neutral fuels. So maybe instead of us being too quick to judge, maybe we're getting in at the bottom rung, and we're almost sort of showing the way that if people like us make these kind of decisions, it just might stimulate the market in a different direction. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Lodge, what would you like to say?
I would just say, like, I can understand where you're coming from, but as we've seen in history, especially the fossil fuel companies, for change to happen with them, it's so slow. And we've seen in the paper, it's documented that, I think there's only one example of a company being able to, or a pension scheme being able to actually encourage good practice with a fossil fuel company. And I just don't think that the fossil fuel companies are willing to move just now. And I think it is right for us to go down this route. And maybe that will help them decide that, they do need to change their practices, but I think we need to be, at this point, we need to be moving away from them.
Okay, thank you. So, the recommendation to read out section 2. I think we've got a different opinion on this, put the paper to the vote. Those in favour of the paper, Michelle? Yes. Any abstentions? Paper's carried. Item 14, senior manager, paper trust. Thank you very much. The paper has tabled 6 council approval to amend the scheme delegations so that the appointments committee is no longer required to be convened for scheme manager roles. As outlined in the paper, the council agreed to change the scheme delegation in 2019. This change extended the remit of the appointments committee to include senior managers. These changes were undertaken at the time to ensure consistency in approach with the previous appointments of the strategic directors, following the council's agreement with the General Services Revenue and Capital Budget in March 2018, which included agreement to the new structure proposed by the previous chief executive. Following the COVID pandemic and ongoing recruitment challenges in the council across Scotland and the UK, it is recognised that there may be a requirement for multiple rounds of recruitment in the future to fill professional roles, which would necessitate multiple appointments committees and potentially need to extend the timings to recruit, whilst adding further to the already heavy workload of members and officers. Amending the scheme delegation to require an appointments committee to be stood up for our chief officers with statutory posts are not senior managers would allow strategic directors to take operational responsibility for the recruitment process and have full involvement in the appointment and decision making for their senior managers. Should council not agree to proposed changes, there is a resultant operational impact, and as such, a further paper provided in Appendix A 6 council agreement regarding the permanent recruitment of role of senior manager transformation and capital. I'm happy to take any questions. Okay, thanks, Chris. Do you have any questions, Councillor Bolton?
Just to ask, how many elected members came to you and said that they were tired of these onerous responsibilities and going through the appointments process? Thank you once that's
Only council holder because the elected members came to me. So, pardon?
How many came to you?
I wasn't counting, but a few people have mentioned that it was when we've had recruitment panels, there's been a range of feedback. So from new councillors, I've had comments about why do we do this because we don't have the why we have the we don't have the operational experience. Sorry, in terms of the roles and so on. So other councils, it's been. I think as we've got into a period where, I've done some analysis on this in terms of filling roles and so on, we're getting to the point where we're going out 2, 3, 4 times to fill roles. If that involves an appointments committee, it means we have to keep trying to reconvene an appointments committee, which it adds a drag factor when you're trying to get into the employment market, which is changing pretty rapidly. So we need to be, if we go out the first time, sometimes they can change quite quickly, even for the close to closing dates. So we're looking out on some of those opportunities and we're carrying quite a lot of vacancies as a result. So it's been a range of issues. It's not all been the councillors coming forward. It's been the workforce supply issues and the sort of additional time commitment that we have when we're working with the appointments committees.
If elected members don't have the skills and all interview a senior manager, who do they have the skills to be an appointment chief executive?
Because you are for statutory officers, directors and chief executive roles, you're appointed on the basis of strategic competencies. When you get into interviewing a senior manager, you're getting quite a lot into issues about operational delivery and technical knowledge, more so than you would in those in more senior roles. And I think that's the point that's been raised with me on a few occasions. As I say, I won't count a bit, but it's come up a few times.
Just a final question on that point, because the explanations been provided by officers about why the policy was changed back in 2019. I'm entirely accurate. I didn't particularly want to do that to uniformity. I didn't think it was a bit control. And I'm being quite clear. I think elected members have a responsibility to take in terms of senior roles and to take a responsibility to really help them. And that's so that's the answer to the question that the councillors came on. Who wants to ask why are we doing this? Because that's what we get right. But anyway, in terms of this point, so I've made that point previously, so that senior managers at the moment, and if I recall correctly, I could be shutting myself up here and this will give me an opportunity to get me if I get it wrong, but my recollection is the senior managers now do have an element of strategic responsibility. Therefore, as the argument goes, because of that, then elected members do take some role in terms of the appointment. Rather than just delegating the basis of it's all operational, get it to people know better.
Like to respond on that, councillor. So yeah, it's the balance. So if you look at the recruitments, the balance that you would get in the more senior roles above senior manager level will be predominantly on the strategic and that competency basis. What you find when you get to senior manager is you get a blend of technical expertise. There will be an element of strategy, but to be honest, at the senior manager level, there's probably the proportion is higher to the operational and technical than it is to the strategic relative to those other roles. So if you're thinking about the sorts of questions you ask on an interview, at senior manager level, the questions will be different. Although competency based, they will be different to those that you would ask for at statutory officers, directors and chief exec.
Any other questions?
No.
Anybody else? There's a person to move the paper.
I'm happy to move this paper, and I will hold my hands up to say I was one of the people who spoke to Nikki in relation to an interview that I'd sat on for a position, and I felt very uncomfortable because it was a very technical position, and as an elected member, I did not know the competencies and the skills that were required to fill that position. And it led to a kind of longer discussion in relation to recruitment. I think it's absolutely right that elected members are involved in the recruitment and appointment committees are established for strategic directors, chief executives and statutory officers, because those are the roles that are directly accountable to elected members. I also take on board the points when we're looking at putting appointment panels together. If you don't appoint, then it's pulling together another appointment panel, pulling together another one. We've gone through that a number of times in recent months, and it's been very, very difficult to do that, and it does hold up the process. And what we found on a number of occasions is by the time we've managed to pull together an appointment panel, we've gone out, the person's got a job somewhere else, so we then go back out and have to start the process all over again. So for me, it streamlines the process, and elected members still have a role in appointing the more senior positions in the council, and I think that we appoint our strategic directors, chief executives, to do a job, and part of that is to put together their teams and senior managers below them, and that's something we think we have to trust them to do that, and I certainly do, and I propose that we do on that basis.
Thank you, councillor Lindsay, please.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, just to hold that tone, to be honest, in terms of my position on this particular area is fully supportive of the paper, and for me, as Nicky's outlined, the strategic and ultimately political element of the individuals that we'd be seeking to come into posts at that level are such that I think we have a place within that forum. When it comes to below that, I think we are appointing strategic directors who we then should trust to then go ahead and deliver recruitment that is right for their particular areas. And I think that's the key thing for me, is that we appoint on the basis of competency, of trust, and that we allow for that empowerment of staff, of senior staff, to go ahead and pull together their teams as they see appropriate. So I'm fully supportive of the paper, and I think it sets the right tone. I think it sets the right culture in terms of how we want to lead. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, thank you. Paper's now open for debate. Councillor Holden.
Thanks, Convener. I'm thinking that arguments being put forward in terms of how we're supposed to change, so arguments haven't changed, not in it. But I remember it's a bit control. I mean, that's a bit that, because you have seen the management level, I see that one statutory officers, etc., monitoring officer, chief strategic officer, chief executive. I haven't got a problem with that. I also have a problem with having senior managers falling under that category as well. And I think it's simply we should. If some elected members are tired or didn't want to do it, maybe we should stop appointing on a political basis and appointing them can be asked, sorry, then it can be bothered one day to do it. Because I'm not on this thing either, because I'm not even if they agree my position, we have an appointments committee, I ain't on it. Because it's appointed on the basis of one Labour, one Conservative and 2 SNP. I would agree with elected members involvement and appointment committees are based on them and want to be there. That would be a radical departure from the political structures and national advertising, but I would be quite happy to go along with that. I'm quite comfortable with it. I don't think the bad choices of later ones on a political basis. And it's no big trust. I think that's a wee bit unfair because I hope members know when we say that because when we start talking about good trust, and it's not good trust. It's not because they trust them, it's because that's what they do. So I think that we should be making that trust. I think it's a further erosion. And it's a self-inflicted erosion. It's about its elected members. We're constantly being asked to delegate. We're all asked to delegate if we have the power. All this power is continually being given away, all this authority continually given away, not always for the best reasons. And I think somebody needs to be given the idea because I'm going to elect the first man, right? I'm going to do it. I'm more than happy to do it. It's a very similar argument to one we used to have represented. We used to have appeals process where if a member of the staff is dismissed, it's get appealed to elected members. And it was stopped. Because some elected members didn't like getting involved in that process. I didn't get involved in that process because that's the leadership's of it. We're supposed to be privy to leadership. But it's a choice. And I understand the points that they made with Graham and Brown as well. I'm not a problem with it. But I'd quite like to do it. And that's the way we should keep it. Because for every single thing you give away, it's one less thing to thought, it's one less thing that once we less than useful to the organisation. We have these meetings, obviously, once every few weeks, and we do all these decisions here, but I think we also have a role to bring up points. It's good something to look something like the Kevin. That was the man that, we would be given that job. I think that's important. That's important to keep in mind. And what's what you mentioned also is that it's a layer of management that's stripped away, which led us to the senior managed positions. And that layer was stripped away with the responsibility to the point. It's just like a further erosion of the responsibilities. And very much I think self-reflective. It's the one person I did that. I respect things like other people think differently on that. But I think it comes to the point. What's the point of this? What are we here?
Yeah, thanks for that. I don't know if there's what's going to join a bit before you do is qualify Graham and said here that they were tired and whatever reasons I've been given, that's one on 7 or 10 anyway in the papers. Anybody else want to join the debate? Let's reply.
Yeah, I'm happy to just sum up there, and just as you said there, I don't think anybody said that they were tired. I think everybody on this side of the chamber is quite happy to sit on every single committee in the council if needed. In fact, many do. And attend so many different meetings. For me, it's not a thing about power, it's not a thing about control, it's about a thing of using your time and your skills and your resources best. And if we need to be on a committee, I would be fine every step of the way for us to be on there. And in my view, for that level of appointment, councillors don't need to be there. And I'm quite happy to trust the kind of strategic directors to take those decisions in our place. But of course, everybody's different. Everybody's got their different views, and that's just mine.
Okay, thank you. So what we're going to ask to do is agree scheme of delegations amended to read the authority to appoint chief officers, the chief executive directors, and statutory officers, section 5, CSW, CEDO, monitoring officers, delegated appointments committee, which is set up as and when we need it. Consent to approve? No. Those in favour of that paper, please show. Those against? So one in favour, carried. Okay, so that's you've got one final paper for this, and I'm saying consent paper before we vote it. That's the meeting. So the answer is for that. I thought you voted for it. Yes. Apologies. It's 11-1-1. Amend the next.
I want to see it, surely. I thought you were thinking of it, and I should think you were thinking of it. Thank you.
No, in fairness, I'm thinking it was a bit of a hover, but what?
So stupid. That's
Okay, so final item, we continue.
So
We had an exempt report that has been presented to council in terms of the paragraph 9 of Schedule Part 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act. The exemption, if accepted, will mean that the report is held in private with the public and press being asked to leave the meeting. Yeah, it's fine. I'm not going into anything in relation to that. So, however, I was approached to review the decision to make the report exempt. My view is some of the details in the report fall within the provisions of paragraph 8 and 9 of the Act. However, as a result of my review, I approached the parties detailed in the report to establish whether they would have an issue with the information in the report being made in public. After discussion with the parties, I received written consent from those affected by the report to confirm that they were happy for the report to be made public. On the other so in terms of standing orders 8.12, it is the council to decide whether to confirm this exemption. If elected members agree for the report to be made private, we'll need a few minutes to allow the press and the public to leave the chamber and online. Therefore, I'm handing back to Kidney now to make a decision on whether the report, bearing in mind the consent that has been given by the parties involved and allowing their information to be made public.
Yeah, I just wanted to come in to say that when the paper came forward as an exempt paper, we did get perturbed as to the reason for it becoming exempt, so we asked it to be assessed. Lee has done that. She said that it didn't meet, as she said, some of the requirements for confidentiality. However, I haven't spoken to the parties involved. They're happy for it to be held in public. I don't think there's anything in that report that needs to be kept. It's a use of our HRA budget. I think it's quite right that it is held in public and that people can see for transparency purposes the discussions that are had. We know it's a contentious issue, and I just think that holding that item in private just adds even more fuel to the fire, quite frankly. So, yeah.
Okay, so the decision has been asked 8 years of content of this paper being held in public galleries. Anyone else otherwise minded? Okay, so Holly, that's what you take us to the paper. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Good council. Seems like I was thinking I was last up here this morning. The report presented this afternoon just briefly outlines the issues in terms of the Westall Capital Budget Commitment. Obviously, the budget was confirmed at council in February of this year in relation to the expected out of the position in terms of what was required in terms of the investment in the site from both the Scottish Government and in terms of the council's commitment. Unfortunately, timing is a great thing, where one of my colleagues was sitting here, I received a call after the paper had already been made public to inform them that the contractor had been made aware of that some of the costs that they had been looking at had started to increase, and it started to indicate to Gavin verbally on a phone call that it was likely they would not be able to deliver that project within the agreed budget. And this is obviously detailed in the report. Subsequent to that, Gavin has done some work with the contractor, looking at the costs, and has arrived at a position where the final budget is laid out to pay for it at 5.5 million. And that's resulted in some value engineering work and some removal of some of the additional standards in terms of the site which originally looking at. So the paper is part today asking for council's governance to approve a further £1.305 million to be allocated to the project by increasing the total HRA capital allowance as approved in February from 15.261 million to 16.566 million. The paper also asks that this will be approved in line with the approved HRA borrowing position that was approved in February, And this is for the reasons outlined in the paper in respect of improved outcome position for the HRA at the year end, and some changes reflected in the capital budget projections for last year as well. The paper is detailed in terms of timing that actually occurred, but obviously I'm joined by Gavin here, his colleague who's been central to this project. In terms of the timing, the actual West Off site is due to be demolished on Monday, the 22nd, and if approved, the work will commence on site early in June to take forward this innovative project with discussion. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Murray. Councillor Quinn?
Thank you, Convener. The motivation for the whole exercise is embedded in the statement that the West Off site had reached the end of its useful life. In what way had it reached the end of its useful life? Oh,
In general, the site, despite any of our best endeavours, could not and would not meet the requirements of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, new fire regulations that we had imposed, which was being assessed and judged by the House Regulator. Myself, Gavin and others had met representatives from the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service previous to this bid being submitted to the Scottish Government, looking at possible differences, possible ways that we could mitigate against the risk, but none of those were acceptable to the Fire and Rescue Service at all. And they would still say, although the site had improved in terms of its fire safety, they would not give a sign off in terms of the submission for a regulator.
right. How many families will be housed on the site presently?
There is going to be 16 units available.
And do you reckon that the investment divided by 16 is a fair and sensible price to pay for a single residence? I mean, it seems to me, I haven't done the maths on it, it seems to me as if the cost of supplying a house price would be an awful lot less than 5.5 million divided by 16. And do you agree?
Is that a personal opinion? In essence, when we first had this discussion a long time ago in the police committee before the pandemic, the cost of construction of a house was considerably less. We are where we are in terms of the market conditions. We've seen huge increases through the pandemic in terms of material resource costs, and that's only been taken forward in terms of the Ukraine crisis, which is ploughed on in terms of material cost increases, which is then ploughed through into real terms increases in inflation, which we're all feeling within their own pockets in terms of the cost of us in the weekly and daily shops in terms of how that inflation has flowed through the economy. When we've been sitting here in the council today, my colleague Gavin has been looking at some of the material price increases that have come through some of the latest construction price indices. That even if today that we decided to take a pause and have another look at this, costs are continuing to increase. We're looking at another 10 to 15% increase in terms of some of these material price rises just in the first quarter of this year alone. So in terms of whether value for money, the cost per unit, whatever, it's hard to say whether we'll ever go back to that time where some of these unit costs will be lower than they are just now. I know that some other housing associations are receiving significant tender price for some tenders that we're putting out for costs of actually building houses, which is given concern in terms of the whole house building programme that the Scottish Government is looking to deliver on. There's some real questions about the whole, whether the delivery programme might need to shift in terms of actually new build versus buying off the shelf. As you know, the council has been quite successful over the last year in terms of buying units off the shelf. So there's that whole balance to be taken into the mix. I know that's a long-winded answer, but it's the best I can provide as the market conditions are set up for today.
Thanks. But you're not building a council house here. Right? What is the unit that you're building? Is it not just a very much reduced style of? Is it? What does a unit consist of?
I've enjoyed that. So
The units are actually a mix of council and non-residential, so it's an upgrade on the existing amenity blocks. So it does have room for living in, however, they're not there for full-time living, it's for winter periods. It has an adaptable bathroom and it has an area for living at the front of the property. The amenity blocks that are in situ just now have a kitchen, a bathroom, and that's it. So it is an update, it's about twice the size of the amenity block itself. It is the size, relatively size of a small bungalow, and the 16 on the side. Everything is kind of reduced, but we can provide the drawings for that as well.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay, thank you, councillor Cook.
What we don't vote for this today, what's the outcome?
Don't vote for this today in terms of the increase in the cost. The impact in terms of the site is, well, we will still go ahead with the demolition. That's happening on Monday. The site will no longer. The council will limit the decision in terms of its commitment to this site. In terms of us going back and looking at this project again, you're probably more likely to be faced with a paper coming back with further increased costs coming back to the council.
Councillor Cook, do you have any further questions?
No, I was going to look like we're coming back in and
The chief executive asked me a supplementary question about, obviously, our council has taken the decision a number of years ago, minded with previous councillors who indicated that they had made a bold decision in terms of investing in a travelling person site way back in the 80s. And it's served us well here in Clackmannanshire, quite frankly. Since the establishment of the site, the community is well established within the community, within Arville. Some of the residents actually on site are some of the original residents, and we're now facing some of the second or third generation of some of the residents on site. So they like the site, they like the location of the site. In terms of illegal encampments, we've obviously not seen as many as that within Clackmannanshire as perhaps we might have done if it wasn't for the site being there. So for that helps answer the question as well as part of the reasons why we should have a site within Clackmannanshire.
Okay, councillor Holden.
Thanks, Convener. I was just going to ask, I suspect with a view if Councillor Quinn was done and we changed direction a wee bit. I think he was asking for some question of why we should spend this amount of money on a very small unit. I think that's the point of the question. I'm interested, no one particularly was going to take us up very far in this debate, but so if you would a question I'd like to ask around just following on what Brian said as well. We statutorily obliged to provide accommodation for gypsy travellers, communities in Clackmannanshire.
No, the council is not statutorily obliged. In fact, ourselves and 18 other local authorities who actually have a site out of the 32 local authorities. There is a couple of housing associations who do provide their site in some locations as well. Statutorily, we are required as part of our housing needs and demand assessment as part of the strategic housing investment plan to look at the needs of our gypsy traveller community within that, but we're not obliged to actually tell us.
So, the question was kind of half-assed there, the only half-answer was the one around, is it worthwhile to see this level of investment? To put this level of investment in what's a very small community, and some would criticise, and I'm not asking this question very publicly with something, but lifestyle choices, of course it's not culture. It's about whether or not they want to respect that, whether they want to participate in that, but half of the councils in Scotland don't, approximately, but we're one that does. So, but I take it, because you gave an answer to say, well, if we reject this paper, then, you know, we'll still put up down, but then if we lose out investment, I think we should paper come back at some other time. But with the letter still go, to the minister.
So obviously the council would tag us letter, which is proposing to send until the conclusion of this meeting. So I think the letter is set out in paper indicates that obviously the council, we went into partnership with the Scottish Government. We were invited to submit a bid as part of the Scottish Government and recognised the needs of gypsy travellers in terms of the investment. Routinely since about the mid-80s, the investment in the community sites has not been forthcoming. So the Scottish Government had recognised this a number of years ago, and that's where they set up this, the funding and investment strategy coming forward. This is all about learning lessons from the Scottish Government in terms of this process, because it's been 20, 30 years since anybody's built a sort of structure like this. The reason why our bit was successful was the fact that we were involved in the community in the decision-making process through the placemaking standard. And that's really set us in good stead in terms of the engagement with the community and the support that the community are receiving from MECOP, who provide assistance and advice to the Gypsy Traveller community. They've recommended to others from the country, some other local authorities, to try and follow the lead in the model that we're adopting. In terms of your wider question, in terms of whether the letter should still go, if the council doesn't make the decision to make the investment, probably the letter would need to be adjusted and changed to say this was a decision by council in terms of the impact of meeting the additional requirements when the council went into partnership.
Final question, do you think that if we did that, if the council took the decision, we're not going to put in their money, you're going to pay that pressure with the box on it, that pressure with the cost of impact, or would it be wise to call it bluff?
I think the answer is set out in the paper. The fact we've had discussions, the responsible team who are looking after this project from the Scottish Government have indicated to us that they have allocated their set budget for the year. That's what they've indicated to ourselves.
So they're calling
Okay, Councillor Klein.
Put my own screen again. How convinced are you, or why are you convinced, shall I say, that the quotation that you've had for constructing this is best value?
The affordability cap is based on the new housing scheme, and that was what was put forward in the beginning. The changes are due to delays in solution architecture we had. The best value has been confirmed by Hubco commercial team and Hans commercial team and our internal third party QS. I don't think with the value engineering that we have done, we can get any more out of the project. The original figure coming in at 7.1, reduced down to 5.19. Taking out the passive house design, we're still maintaining the A rating of the properties is the best that we're going to get for the money there. The 3 workshops that we've gone through to work through the technical design, the innovation solution in terms of solar panels, radiant panels, and the variation requests that we've gone through to make sure that we've had the right consultants on the job. I'm quite happy that we are obtaining best value for the council. We're not going to go any further and baselining our costs against the other 3 pilot projects. I feel that we are in the best position to provide best value. Further reports will come out on that in terms of things like heating and some of the innovation solution that we're doing around the solar panels and Tesla packs. But from the point of view just now in terms of costing, it is the best value that we're going to get. We have compared it against the home market value for some new builds in Midlothian and West Lothian. Prices are coming up at about 35%. First quarter, the last quarter for 2022, 9.6 is the raise. So I'm quite happy that the figure that has been presented is the best value that we're going to get for this project.
Thank you for a very comprehensive answer.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's a question or a query, this, but I'll go ahead with it anyway. You were saying that the people on site previously, third generation, and I'm just wondering why we call the travelling person site, the people are here, or are these people going away and coming back, or how is this working? It's just it's a query I've got, and we've seen it's third generation. But it's supposed to be a travelling person site, so surely they're not there constantly.
The term that we've been asked to focus on in terms of the grant bid for the Scottish Government is structured with appropriate accommodation. So the travelling community, some of the residents on the site, they travel during certain periods of the year, so some of them may go away during the summer period. This was an option that we looked at in terms of how we were actually going to manage the actual site build, was to work around some of the movements that the travellers actually went, which actually when they actually left the site. So some of them do actually travel during the course of the year, but not full time during the course of the year. So, but that's up to each individual family and each individual who wants to live in their own particular way.
Thank you. That clears it up a bit.
Okay, any other questions? So just before we move on to moving through, it's been a long time, but I've been reaching quick myself, not to correct one of my own errors through the Steve on the paper. This came in front of council, 16, period special meeting dedicated to commission approvals and funding. And then, as one is clearly detailed, the circumstances have changed in such a way that that information was available known to us at the time we came there with an understanding orders to bring it back under 6 months review to explain the reasons for that. So I'm taking out a check to do that now to put on record. That's the reason for the back of the council. And standing orders. So my apologies for that. That's very much.
All we can do that. And do we not have to sustain standing orders and vote on that basis rather than a decision from committee?
So the standing orders in terms of 17 says that no motion to try and alter or withdraw a council or committee decision will be considered or passed for at least 6 months from the date of the originals, unless the convener is satisfied with the circumstances and changed in a relevant way that shall give his or her reasons for determining the circumstances have changed in a relevant way, which should be recorded in the minute. I think that's where the convener is to set aside the standing order.
It was one to say the next sentence, the paragraph, we must say the next sentence.
It is noted that it indicates that the decision may be withdrawn or altered. This information does not need to be specifically highlighted in if the withdrawal or the alteration is set out in terms of the report or any committee minute put forward to us, or the decision is required by law. It doesn't say anything about setting aside standing order.
Let's say I'm going to check the committee will be or council will be given for the second convener, which is that we can promise previously they can ask them to vote. I'm very surprised at that. I mean, that promise to do.
Well, let's just be ready.
It's supply something because that just so we to deal, because that's supply because the only time opportunity that the opposition didn't have a chance to do that, they had to secure 60%, and the members thought that we were done that. So if you give the opposition opportunity sometimes to vote against it, and then the administration would lose the vote, it's very a bit tough. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, what leaves is what's right. It's not it's going to be able to sit.
That wasn't quite the policy, wasn't it?
Okay, Councillor McTaggart, to move the bill.
Thanks, convener. And I realise it's been a very long day, and well, I hope you'll bear with me while I do this. I'd like to thank the service for the comprehensive report, which includes a clear timeline of events leading up to the past few months that resulted in this decision being required. So there's no need for me to repeat that, it's in your papers, but it is very important. As explained in the paper, several elements have led us to this point, where we found ourselves short of the budget we need to complete the project. The main factor appears to be the considerable rise in materials and labour costs, a factor which is not exclusive to this council or limited to this project. We're seeing this across all capital projects. However, I must emphasise that while this is difficult for us all to get our heads around, it is imperative that we agree this paper to allow the Westport development to continue as planned. The police team has invested years in this project. Financial obligations have been agreed between this council and the Scottish Government. The site is cleared and about to be demolished. The families have been displaced into temporary accommodation. The project is at a critical point and it needs to move forward. Your decision today is crucial to that end. You'll recall the original council decision to start this process, and you remember that the Westport residents have been living in the poorest and most unacceptable conditions for many, many years. The site failed under Scottish fire regulations, and the living conditions fell far below any tolerable standard that any resident in Clackmannanshire should quite rightly expect. It's only very recently that the residents of the site actually became tenants of this council. Prior to the council decision in December 2020, the site, oh, sorry, I had a password thing coming up. The site came under the locus property, which meant the residents paid a pitch fee rather than rent, meaning they didn't have the same level of protection or rights that council tenants in Clackmannanshire have. And I also say that the site fees that the residents paid were considerably higher than the highest rent levels in this council. Clackmannshire's Travellers site was one of the worst in Scotland, and yet our site fees were among the highest in Scotland. That's not something this council should be proud of. Following the launch of the Scottish Government of COSLA's Gypsies and Travellers Action Plan in October 2019, Clackmannanshire submitted a bid to redevelop our site. And thanks to Maisha and the team, our successful bid was the highest award in Scotland. When we agreed as a council to support this new development, we were assured of the associated costs. As I've mentioned, factors with our control have changed that. We now find ourselves short of the necessary funds to complete the project, and council is being asked today to agree to use HR8 funds to meet the shortfall. If that is agreed today, my letter, which is attached to the report, will be sent to the Scottish Government seeking a financial contribution to offset these additional costs. While the original funding pot is now fully committed, I'm hopeful that the Scottish Government will agree that we could not foresee this situation and will further agree to offer additional financial resources. Their response to my letter will come back to this council at a future meeting. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Place team, in particular Gavin Wright, who, as highlighted in the paper, acted as a negotiator to bring this project as close to the agreed price as possible, without compromising on our net zero targets. I'd also like to thank the housing team who have worked tirelessly to aid the transition of the site residents into temporary accommodation, and specifically to mention Joanne Anderson and again Gavin Wright, who have gone above and beyond to ensure that the tenancy management of this project runs as smoothly as possible. An enormous amount of work has gone into this project by a great number of people. I'd urge you to agree this paper to allow this project to reach its conclusion. Can I also just please add, we recently applauded the Primrose Place development, and that was for a marginalised specific group of people who had additional needs for whatever reason. I just worry that we're stigmatising a group that has cultural and lifestyle reasons for wanting to live the way that they live. And I don't think it's in our gift to discriminate in that fashion. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Moore, second.
Just like to formally second that. I don't think I could add anything to what James summed up, apart from that, I grew up in Alba, so the site's always been close to where I stayed, and I went to school with some of the kids. So I just think we have a kind of moral right and obligation to do this and to keep going, because if it was anyone else and you're saying like, oh, we could demolish it and not build it, which could end up happening if we didn't agree this funding, I think we would all be in uproar. So I'd like to follow this.
Okay, thank you. The paper's now open for debate. Any wish to debate, councillor Hogan?
Yeah, I'm happy to debate the paper. I think also that like to move some responsibility to ask questions. And that means, and if that means asking the question, is it worth it spending all this money? What's a very small population stage of the money spent? I'd like to ask that question. And if I could answer it, I wouldn't answer it. But if you could answer it. I think that's good enough. Not that having read through the paper, it's unfortunate some of these things. And I was kind of comfortable with what the officer was saying at the end to say, well, it was pretty straightforward. So it's to get it on again. We've got a date so we're going to pay. And on that basis, then we just need to hope the Scottish Government will help it.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Councillor.
Yeah, it's a, I'm not February, increase, basically, questions. But no, it's fine. Like, we're in a situation we can't back out of. I think the team have done a great job in getting the price down to where it's got to. And that's been a realistic response to critical supply side situation. And I think we've got the best outcome, although it's not a stick one. I think it's the only outcome we can go with. It's all supporting people for that.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anything else. Councillor Taggart, if you want to. Okay, so the paper recommended to approve a further 1.3 million to be allocated to the project, increasing the approved total HRA capital orders for 23-24, 15.261 million to 16.566 million. We also have to approve, this will be lower than the amount of HRA approved lower than 23-24. Thank you, to approve. Thank you. This is another option. I have to move a little bit more than the last one. Use it in a better. It's probably an opportunity to serve notice to you. Having had discussions about meetings that come forward in the future, actually looking at forward plan in terms of somebody sitting on those meetings, it's quite important already. And like we find ourselves in this situation, fairly regularly, once we can see even what's on the agenda to say we can go to be added to it. So I think we should probably recognise that what's happened today may well be what council meetings we start to look like from here on in and start to plan for that and give thought to how we arrange time off for those of us who are working on jobs as well. And I think if we go in that direction, what we can probably do is plan the meeting structure for it better than this one today in terms of where the breaks will take place and we should make people the proper bill rates and coffee breaks, etc. Built into that in a way that didn't quite happen with any kind of regulated fashion today. So, but I think it's where we're going to go. We look at what's sitting in the agenda to see the meetings are going to take longer than one, and I think we'll be running an opportunity to start to plan for that. So we'll just serve notes to that's where we're going to go with the confusion. Thanks very much, Sylvie, for your Stammer today, if nothing else.